which is some questions regarding the fiqh of Juma, the fiqh of the day of Friday, the prayer, etc., and some things related to it. Just like we did last week. I apologize, I didn't have enough time to finish up some of the things that were needed for what's it called, Ibad al-Rahman, the series that we were doing every Thursday, but inshallah ta'ala we'll do this today instead. Just so that you know, for the sake of time and for time management, we won't be going over more than roughly like a half hour. We'll finish early inshallah ta'ala today, just because I know the time change and it's cold and whatnot, just so that people are aware and they can plan accordingly. So last week, if you remember, we went over what are some of the minimum requirements for Jum'ah. So we talked about whether the number was 40, or whether it was 12, or whether it was 4, whether it was 3, or whether it was 2. You guys remember this discussion? And we went over some of the other things related to what's necessary to actually perform Jum'ah, etc. Today, we will discuss, inshallah ta'ala, the time. So what time can Jum'ah be performed? Any opinions? Any ideas? Dhuhr time? So Dhuhr time, yes. So anytime after Dhuhr up until Asr. Can I do it after Asr? No. So Asr is the cutoff, right? طيب. Can I do Jum'ah before Dhuhr?
Yes.
Some people are saying yes. Does anybody say no?
Difference of opinions.
Huh? There's a difference of opinion? You can do Jum'ah after Dhuha time. Okay. Any proofs? That's very early. Imagine Dhuha time, you're coming 9 a.m. Jum'ah.
I think there is hadith.
Yeah.
It says that the Prophet Muhammad made the khutbah before the sun even.
Aywa. Very good. So, and that hadith is actually found in Bukhari. It's an authentic hadith. The hadith that he quoted, which is what they use as proof for what the opinion that the brother actually just expressed. So it's an authentic hadith. And it says that the Prophet ﷺ did the khutbah and the salah before zawal, and so this narration itself, the Sahaba said, we left and zawal was happening as we were speaking. So clearly we started before zawal. Other ahadith indicate that they said zawal happened during the khutbah, right? While they were in the masjid. And because by the time they left, they said, yani the shams just did zawal. And in some, zawal. What do we mean by zawal? Zawal is, in English it's called the meridian. So when the sun is in the meridian means it's in the middle of the sky. Right? So imagine the sun rising from the east and it goes all the way to the middle. When it's in the middle, by the way, just so that you know, technically speaking, can you pray at that time? No, not yet. Dhuhr actually, إِذَا زَالَتِ الشَّمْسِ. But it's after zawal. Dhuhr starts after zawal. When it's in the middle of the sky, there used to be some pagans who would worship at that particular time. They would measure it, they would know when it happens, and for them, like it's a 10-minute window, for them this was a time of worship. And so the Prophet ﷺ said it's makruh to pray at that time. It's not haram, but it's makruh, it's disliked. Does that make sense? And so for us Muslims, Dhuhr actually starts once it moves out of zawal. This is, by the way, the explanation of the verse in the Quran where it says, أَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِدُلُوكِ الشَّمْسِ دُلُوكِ الشَّمْسِ حِينَمَا تَمِيلُ عَنِ الزَّوَالِ. Right, the verse in Surah Al-Isra, أَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِدُلُوكِ الشَّمْسِ إِلَى غَسَقِ اللَّيْلِ. So from دُلُوكِ الشَّمْس, once it starts to move, after that time, all the other prayers are happening, right? From Dhuhr all the way to Isha, they're back to back to back to back, right? These are referred to in Surah Al-Isra. There's one verse that says, دُلُوكِ الشَّمْسِ إِلَى غَسَقِ اللَّيْلِ. غَسَقِ اللَّيْلِ is when the last twilight over the horizon sets, which establishes the time for Isha. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one sentence tells you all 5 prayers. دُلُوكِ الشَّمْسِ إِلَى غَسَقِ اللَّيْلِ وَقُرْآنَ الْفَجْرِ. Because Fajr is by itself, so it mentions it by itself. It's not connected to before or after, it's alone. Everybody clear so far? طيب. Zawal, usually speaking, it's makruh to pray, except on the day of Friday. All of the fuqaha agree, even every single madhab that I've looked at, they agree that on the day of Friday, the idea of zawal being makruh for you to pray in is no longer there. Because all of them agree that if you go to the masjid, it's a sunnah to do what? Not only 2 rak'ahs of sunnah, but it's open prayer. You can pray as much as you want. Many scholars actually tell you, because there's no set amount of sunnah before Jum'ah. They say it's actually open. And if the person has the time and the ability, they should go to the masjid and be involved in ibadah as much as possible, which is salat, nafila, reading Quran, making dua, doing dhikr, reading Surah Al-Kahf, whatever they want to do, they can do inshallah ta'ala at that time. Does that make sense? This is for Salat al-Jum'ah, and they're unanimous agreement. Which means that even if I think that, outside it might be Zawal, don't worry about Zawal, because of the day of Friday. And many of the scholars said, هَذَا لِشَرَفِ يَوْمِ الْجُمْعَةِ. This is to honor the day of Friday. This is to honor the day of Friday. Because the day of Friday has special things. So to honor it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed that prohibition, or the dislike, the karaha, for you to pray at the time of Zawal. On top of this, we have explicit ahadith in Bukhari and Muslim, many narrations which indicate that the whole salah took place before Zawal, and in some cases while Zawal was happening, and in some cases right after, like they finished right when Dhuhr time started. He said, Zalat al-Shams, while we were outside. So clearly this is indicating that the timing of Jum'ah is not exactly coinciding with Dhuhr. Due to these narrations, this group of scholars holds the opinion, and I'll mention the question and I'll tell you what the opinion is. So the question is Jum'ah Dhuhr, or is Jum'ah and Dhuhr is Dhuhr? Do you guys understand the question? Like on the day of Friday, there are a group of scholars that say Jum'ah on the day of Friday is actually Dhuhr, it's a modified Dhuhr, but it's still technically Dhuhr. But there's a group of scholars that say no, Jum'ah is one thing, Dhuhr is separate. And then if you pray Jum'ah, you no longer have to pray Dhuhr. But if you do not pray Jum'ah, you have to pray Dhuhr. Does that make sense? It seems to me, Wallahu a'lam, I could be wrong, I've been wrong many times. Just ask my wife, it's true, it's not I've been wrong in many things, even alhamdulillah in the religion as well, and alhamdulillah, people point out our mistakes, this is not a problem. It seems to be the case, Wallahu a'lam, that Jum'ah is Jum'ah and Dhuhr is Dhuhr, that they're two separate things. Just because of the rulings regarding them, the things that go into them, etc. And that as a rukhsa, Allah removed from us the burden of having to pray both Jum'ah and Dhuhr on the same day. Does that make sense? And there's a lot of proofs to this opinion. One of them is that the timing clearly is not the timing of Dhuhr. That sometimes he's praying, the Prophet ﷺ prayed it before Dhuhr. Now obviously they're still around what? The middle of the day. None of them are clearly like at duha time, right? Like early in the morning time. None of them, the Prophet ﷺ never said, okay, we're going to pray, and it was like roughly 10 a.m. Obviously they didn't have clocks back then, but he's never going to say we don't have any narrations that indicated that he prayed at 10 a.m. However, another proof that they use, that this group of scholars use, just so that you're aware, is the proof of what do you do when Jum'ah and Eid are on the same day. Now, you just pray Jum'ah, or you just pray Eid? So if you pray Eid, do you have to pray Jum'ah? No. Now there is a group, just to be fair, to be academically fair, there is a group that maintains even if you pray Eid, you still have to pray Jum'ah. The Eid does not negate Jum'ah. There is a group and they have their proofs for this. Yet the proofs don't seem to be as strong as the group that maintains that if you pray Eid, you do not have to pray Jum'ah. And this is due to explicit sayings of the Sahaba, the companions, where they said that when we used to pray Eid on the day of Jum'ah, we didn't have to go to Jum'ah. Jum'ah became optional. Now if you go to Jum'ah, is that okay? 100%. Here's the thing. If you pray Eid on the day of Eid, do you still have to pray Dhuhr? Yes. But you don't have to pray Jum'ah. Do you see this? They're in agreement that if you pray Eid, you still have to pray Dhuhr. And they also say that Jum'ah is, because of the way that we do it, it resembles Eid. And this is why Jum'ah is the weekly Eid for the Muslims. We have a weekly Eid, which is Jum'ah, right? There's a yearly Eid, and then there's a lifetime Eid. What's the lifetime Eid? Hajj, very good. It's a trick question, but obviously it's the case. When you pray, and what's the salah for Hajj? The main salah that you have to attend, and there's a khutbah. Arafat. Okay? There's a salah at Arafat, there's a khutbah and everything. So there's a weekly Eid, there's a yearly Eid, and there's a lifetime Eid. Obviously, if a person gets to go to Hajj more than once, they get to do that Eid more than once as well. But I hope inshallah ta'ala that this makes sense. Because of this, there's the weekly Eid, which is the weekly Eid of Jum'ah, and this is what they maintain. So, based upon this, it is permissible to pray Jum'ah before Zawal. This comes in handy where? Especially in America. Now, over in majority Muslim countries, do they pray Jum'ah before Zawal? No. Why not? This issue rarely comes up.
Because all the work and the school they give them.
Very good. People are off. School isn't in. You know what I mean? Most people don't work on the day of Friday. You know what I mean? People have the ability to go whenever. And so for them, there's no reason to do it before Zawal. So almost unanimous, the practice is in predominantly Muslim countries that they'll pray Jum'ah after Zawal. And so this really doesn't come up.
They never give this explanation.
Naam?
They never talk about this explanation.
Aslan, they don't need to. You know what I mean? Khalas, it's a done deal.
I don't know, maybe.
There's a done deal. Khalas, you're going to Jum'ah, you don't need to know the fiqh behind it. You just trust that it's happening. Khalas, you know what I mean? You don't have to deal with it. However, here in America, we have to deal with it.
Some masajid they make 2 Jum'ahs here, but down there just only one time.
Of course, Aslan, yeah, you can't. So I'll tell you, so this is another question that we'll discuss. Here in America, though, it becomes a need to fulfill that some masajid offer Jum'ah earlier than Zawal. Due to what? People's schedules, people's work, people's access to the masajid, transportation issues. We have to deal with a plethora of problems that do not exist in majority Muslim countries. And because of this, and we see that Aslan, it's a valid opinion that you can pray before Zawal. If a masjid wants to offer Jum'ah before Zawal, is there a problem? Inshallah ta'ala, there's no problem whatsoever.
Sometimes you do Jum'ah as Jum'ah Arabic language, the second one in English.
Yeah.
They do that sometimes.
So, good question. Before we get to that question, we'll talk about this issue. Any questions though on this first issue, the issue of time? I hope inshallah ta'ala that the issue of time is clear.
So 11 o'clock, that's before Zawal.
Technically, yeah, it's before Zawal. Technically, so they say, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah explicitly says, وَقْتُهَا وَقْتُ صَلَاةِ الْعِيدِ.
And the sun rises.
Once the sun until Eid, all the way up later. Al-Adha earlier.
Because they need to eat breakfast.
So people can eat breakfast. The Prophet ﷺ actually used to, on purpose, eat a big breakfast on the Eid al-Adha. Nobody eats breakfast before they go. Because people usually want to have very early so that they can slaughter and then perhaps cook the meal and then be that the first meal that they eat. Whereas in Eid al-Fitr, that's not the case. You eat breakfast, you have, kada, and then you go out for the salah. Make sense?
There's no problem praying and when it's in the middle of the
Zawal on the day of Friday. Yeah.
What about the Hanafis, like
Even on the Friday.
really, especially some of the Hanafi scholars
Without knowing what the madhab actually
they pray
really.
but
SubhanAllah.
actually against it, he said something.
On the day of Friday, this prohibition is removed. Because they also agree that these karaha, and in the day it's karaha.
So, like Eid al-Dhuhr,
Yeah.
then
Ummah, I don't think this has ever happened. But if there is Imam Shafi'i even is on record, he's saying, you can pray it before Zawal, ولكن استحسن أن يكون بعد الزوال. You can pray it before Zawal, but it's better to pray it after Zawal. And this is what a majority of the Muslim Ummah does around the world, is that they pray it after Zawal. But I'm saying for us, for applications here in the United States, there are many masajid, and in Europe and in other places where Muslims are a minority, most of us cannot take the day of Friday off. And you have work that you need to go to, etc. Some people used to say, Sheikh, I can only take my lunch break from 12 to 1. And your masjid, this is a masjid I used to be in, prays not even at 1, at 1:30. He's like, there's no way for me to be able to come, because you guys are praying at 1:30. And so we try to recommend that if a masjid wants to offer an early Jum'ah, that's good. This brings us, of course, any other questions on the timing, inshallah ta'ala? I hope it's clear. This brings us to the issue of 2 Jum'ahs in one masjid. Before this, we'll actually ask another question that was asked historically, traditionally. Can you even establish 2 Jum'ahs in one city? Let alone one masjid. This was the question back in the day. That in one city, it was not allowed for you to do more than 1 Jum'ah. Did you guys know this? In one city, more than 1 Jum'ah was not allowed. What's the proof?
Of the Prophet ﷺ masjid.
Yes. The Prophet ﷺ's masjid. Now we know that there were small masajid, they call them al-ahya, masajid al-ahya, musallayat. They were little musallas. And at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, by the time he passed away, ﷺ, there were 12. People don't realize this. Around Medina. And these were like little neighborhood masjids, musallas. And we know from many narrations that some of the Sahaba, for example, would pray with the Prophet ﷺ Salat al-Isha, and then he would go to the musalla al-ahya and he would lead them in Salat al-Isha because he lived in that neighborhood. And it would take him roughly like 20 minutes walking distance. 20 minutes. It's not that bad. When you think about it, it's less than, what is 20 minutes? That's a mile. If he's walking, it's a mile away. So it's not that far. And Medina at the time was very small. Yet the Prophet ﷺ never allowed for Jum'ah to be established in any one of these places. And even when Mecca was conquered and other places, if there's a main big masjid, and this is why all these old cities have a big main masjid, and they call it Al-Masjid Al-Jami'. That's where Jum'ah was established. And then the smaller neighborhood masajid, they would not offer Jum'ah in those masajid. By the way, in the Muslim countries, there are still countries that still adopt this practice, by the way, where if it's a small musalla, if it's a small masjid, they don't do Jum'ah. They only do Jum'ah in the bigger masajid. Does that make sense? A lot of places still actually do this practice. However, the imams later on said, okay, that's great when, for example, Medina is very small, or these other cities are small enough where people can actually go to Jum'ah. Why? What's their proof that now we should allow other masajid in order for people to have access, that they can establish Jum'ah?
Publishing is no good.
It's if they can, if there's a match at the capacity 100 and there's 150.
It didn't have to do much with capacity, because like we said, the number, and we said, the correct opinion is that even 3 can establish Jum'ah, inshallah ta'ala.
Listen, how to make it if you are in the side of the city.
So, people who lived outside of the city at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, were they required to go to Jum'ah? No, al-Badu, Bedouins who did not live in the city, were they required to go to Jum'ah? They were not. If you look at the books, in fact, there's explicit hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, if you don't live in a city, you don't have to go to Jum'ah. Because those people were so far away that the Prophet ﷺ didn't want to burden them. But what happens when the city itself, now this happened in Medina, expands to where now those people that were Badu are no longer Badu, they're in the city. But now the city is so big that those people can't come to the masjid still because they're so far away. Does that make sense? So they're no longer outside of the city, they're in the city, which means that they have to establish Jum'ah. But they can't get close enough, which means that we have to give them a Jum'ah in their area as well, even if it's in the same city. Does that make sense now, what happened? So before, there was a time, because of the distance, the Prophet ﷺ said, don't worry about it, you don't have to pray Jum'ah. For those people that are Badu, they were A'rab, they were living in the deserts, they don't have to attend. But once the city expanded and included them, now we have to, accommodate those people, we have to establish Jum'ah for them. Right? And this opened up a big topic on whether the Jum'ah has to be in a building or can it be outside. Because if we're not requiring it for Badu, that means we can't have a Jum'ah outside, it has to be in a building. But in fact, because we look at the first Jum'ah that Mus'ab did, it was between the trees, the palm trees, as we said in that hadith. And so even, it doesn't have to technically be in a building, as long as there's a group of them that can get together, they can pray inshallah ta'ala. Question, who decides where a Jum'ah can be established, traditionally? It was the imam. When we say the imam, we don't mean like the imam of the masjid, like myself, one of the poor guys. We mean the person in charge, al-amir. He was the one who decided where Jum'ah is to be established. And this is why still to this day, Wazarat al-Awqaf, usually the Ministry of Religious Affairs or whatever, in a predominantly Muslim country, decides where Jum'ah is to be held, etc., and they put the khatib, etc. Because this was what was done from tradition, 1,000 years ago, even more. Okay? So they decide. Now, come to America, do we have an Amir or an Imam? We don't. So who gets to decide where Jum'ah is to be established?
Boy.
No. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the community, right? The community gets to decide. And it's a decision that's based upon need. It should be a decision that's based upon need, right? Theoretically speaking. So there's a group of Muslims in this area. Jum'ah, for them, if the only place to establish Jum'ah is a faraway masjid, then we need a Jum'ah here closer. And so if you look, alhamdulillah, for the most part, the way that the masajid have opened up in America have been according to the need of Jum'ah, primarily. Where's our group that needs to pray Jum'ah will open up, and that's how a lot of the masajid expanded. If you look like ICN here in Nashville, or old masajid like in Memphis or in Salt Lake where I've been, or other places, usually they say what? Oh, there was a group of students and we needed to pray Jum'ah, so we bought this little house near the university, and then the house expanded, and then it became a big masjid, and then we bought another masjid in the area where there's a lot of people that live. وَهَكَذا. It's actually according to the needs of people to pray Jum'ah. Usually, this is the case. Now, occasionally we'll find where there's like a masjid, and then these people are upset, and they'll open up a masjid across the street. And you'll think that this is a joke, but this is actually has happened. I've seen this with my own eyes. Masajid across the street from one another. Not even masalan, a mile down or 2 miles. I'm saying on the same block, 2 different masajid, because they disagreed with one another. What are we doing? Yeah, Allah musta'an. Is that a need for Jum'ah? Yeah, come on. You know what I mean? Then we have to kind of really evaluate what we're doing and what really is going on. So with that point said, when there's a need, multiple Jum'ahs can be established. Based upon this ruling, the scholars then come and say, look, if within the same locality, that masjid that has been purchased or designated for Salatul Jum'ah is not big enough to accommodate the people, can we establish more than one Jum'ah in that masjid? Yes. Now, the answer is yes, according to who? The fuqaha who are familiar or actually live in the United States as well, or in the West, typically, Europe and America. Because are there any masajid in predominantly Muslim countries that offer 2 Jum'ahs? Not a single masjid. It does not exist. Right? It does not exist. And this is why I have asked some of my mashayikh before, like 10 years ago, overseas, Sheikh, is it permissible to establish more than one Jum'ah in a masjid? And his first was like, what? Why would you need to do that? What's going on? Kada, and you explain, it's like, la ya akhi, la yajuz, it's haram, kada, kada, kada. And for him, it's such a foreign idea.
Strange.
Yeah, why would you ever do that? He's like, why can't you guys build a bigger masjid? Or why can't you guys just go to the park? Like, okay, first off, the park, either we're raining, or it's cold, or it's hot, or it's humid, and it's not going to work really, especially for the purpose of Jum'ah, or the place is too small, or sometimes the place is big enough, but we don't have parking. This has been an issue in some masajid where we've seen it, where the masjid needs to accommodate people's cars more than the people. And sometimes we get in trouble because of this. So there's these issues that come up from realities that we experience in America that they won't experience elsewhere. So we have to address them accordingly. And so the fatwa that come, so the scholars that allow more than one Jum'ah in the same masjid, come from the same place of allowing more than one Jum'ah in the same city. Because remember, the default is that it's not allowed in the same locality or the same city unless there's a need. If there's a need, then obviously based upon the need, I can offer more than one Jum'ah in the same masjid as well. If there's a need. Not for the sake of, sometimes people just want to do it just to, you know what I mean?
English.
Arabic English. Yeah, this is not necessarily like, that's not a need in particular. So need is space, and it's not enough. We need to accommodate everybody, etc., etc. Especially because, here's the thing. If it's Arabic English, if that's the issue, what eventually is the course of a year? If a person decides, I'm only going to go to the Arabic khutbah, and a person says, I'm only going to go to the English khutbah, as an example.
Divided, yeah.
Why didn't they allow more than one Jum'ah in the city before?
They don't want to divide the community.
Because of the issue of division. That's the same reason why they didn't allow more than one Salat al-Eid in a city which still is predominantly the case, by the way. The Prophet ﷺ, because of this, actually didn't pray necessarily in the masjid. He would do where? He'd go out in the musalla, out in the open, just so that everybody can come and attend. Why? Because he doesn't want to divide the people up. So if we're just dividing people up for the sake of dividing them, eventually this division will be real and it will be felt in the community. And we don't want to do that. So we want to do something that will actually unify people as much as possible. Which is why it's preferable that the same khutbah be given to both groups. The early khutbah and the later khutbah. Just so that there's an element of unity. Now that brings up the issue, can a khatib give 2 khutbahs and 2 jum'ahs for the group? According to some opinions, yes. Because his intention is irrelevant of their intention. Because for him, the first one would be his jum'ah and the second one would be for him nafil. But for other people it would be jum'ah. But there are some madhahib who view that the imam cannot have a lower intention than the ma'mumeen, than the followers. And so for a group of people it wouldn't be permissible, but for a group of people it would. For the group of people that it wouldn't be permissible, all they have to do is what? Just go to the early Jum'ah and they'll solve their problem. You know what I mean? Problem solved, the early Jum'ah. If we do the same khatib. Or if we say multiple khatibs, not a problem, but then we can alternate them and inshallah ta'ala there's no problem. Yes?
All these is based on necessity.
No.
So if he cannot attend the first one, it's necessary for him to attend the second one.
Yes.
So it's then obligate that over.
Of course, necessity, yes. But for them, if he can't attend, of course, khalas, he's done. Yeah.
He doesn't understand the khutbah and he just comes for salah. Is that,
Do you have to understand the khutbah?
yeah, it's like in this week, holiday.
Yeah.
So some people they just go there just for the salah. What's the time?
Yeah. What? So, do they offer the khutbah, the Kurdish khutbahs early or late?
Early.
The earlier one. So, is it before zawal?
Yeah.
It is. Is that 12?
Yeah.
Nice. So they do it before zawal. Okay.
In summer, during summer, but during the winter it's after.
It's after zawal. Oh, okay. So it's just at 12.
Always 12.
It's always 12. Khalas. Yeah.
And some people they just go there, but they don't know. What
Because of the time. Yeah. No, I had this. There was a masjid. Their khutbah was no longer than 7 minutes in Memphis. Their khutbah, it was in Arabic, but it was no longer than 7 minutes. And it was always packed. And you would go, it's packed. It's like one of the fullest Jum'ahs in the city. Why? Because it's 7 minutes. You go, you're out. 7 minutes, you're done. And then 5 minutes salah, khalas. You know what I mean? You're on with your day. Obviously, a lot of people, they're like, I know, Sheikh, I couldn't understand it, or maybe I understand a little bit, but time, whatever. Okay, mash, khalas.
Is it sunnah to make the khutbah short anyway?
Yes. So no. This is a good issue. It is a sunnah to make the khutbah short. And this is based on the hadith. Inna qisar al-khutbah mi'anatun min fiqh al-rajul. Right? It's an indication of the fiqh, of the depth of understanding of the individual, of the man. Right? Why? Because that shows that his thoughts are summarized. You know what I mean? Everything is in place, it's organized, etc. He knows exactly what he's going to talk about. A lot of times in the khutbahs, and I'm guilty of this myself, we just ramble. We're just talking on, and we're from one topic to the left, to the right. You're all over the place. Obviously, it shows that you probably don't understand the topic that you're discussing. But the point also is that the Prophet ﷺ used the khutbah for very specific means, and he was also talking to an audience that's very different than the audience that we're talking to now. Because a counter argument is that the Prophet ﷺ is talking to the Sahaba, and many of them are also ulama in their own rights, and they would also seek knowledge throughout the whole week. Whereas for us in this day and age, for the khutbah, most of the people that attend Jum'ah, this is the only piece of religious knowledge that they'll get the entire week. So we have to take full advantage of that time to make sure that they get something that will last them hopefully the entire week. Or maybe the day. We're lucky Aslan to get the day. The rest of the day, Aslan, most of the time.
The long, they catch some of it, so better than.
Yeah, sahih. But no, the khutbah technically should be short. But unfortunately, you have khatibs, 45 minutes is the shortest khutbah that they'll give. I've seen this.
They said once and test them.
Yeah. Go ahead, question. No. It's a sunnah to make it. The khutbah is a sunnah. Yeah, you have. No, it's fard to do the khutbah. Yeah. The khutbah is fard. No. Okay, good. Yeah. And then we'll come over here.
If you go to a school where they have jumah, and there's two jumahs, so that the people in the community can go on the first jumah, and in the second jumah, the kids in the school can go. Is it permissible?
Yeah.
Because can't the people in the school just change the schedule and they can go in one jumah?
I mean, hopefully, they should change the schedule. You know what I mean? We'd have to look into why exactly they're dividing it up. It might be for other reasons. Does that make sense? Might be something that was done before and now it might not need to be done, or it's because of the children, or it's because they have to address them in a certain way. We don't know what the intentions are behind it. Like we said, if there's a need, yes. But if there's no need, it's better to unify the people in one Jum'ah. No. Yeah.
I don't know if you answered the question about if I go in the past, I used to go to the college.
Yeah.
Do I need to understand what it's saying?
Yeah. So, هل فهم الخطبة شرط? Is understanding the khutbah a requirement? Obviously, so to answer this, we have to answer another question, which is, what's the purpose of the khutbah? Aywa. So if the purpose of the khutbah is this, it's not pure, like, here's the thing. So, for example, in salah, we have the surah that's read after Surah Al-Fatiha. Of course, the assumption is everybody, at least as a Muslim, should understand Surah Al-Fatiha, or some understanding of it. They don't have to understand it word for word, but at least they know what it means every time somebody reads Surah Al-Fatiha. Agreed upon. I hope we don't need to explain why this is necessary. But the surah afterwards, right? Even if you understand Arabic, you might not understand actually what the surah is saying. But should you still listen? Yes. Because listening to the Quran, amr ta'abbudi, it's an act of worship. Right? So listening to the Quran is an act of worship. Going to the khutbah is listening to the khutbah an act of worship. This is the question. Is it an act of worship? Yes, it is. Because you have to go. And the Prophet ﷺ actually says, مَنْ مَسَّ الْحَصَى فَقَدْ لَغَى وَمَنْ قَالَ لِأَخِيهِ يَوْمَ الْجُمُعَةِ أَنصِتْ فَقَدْ لَغَى. Whoever tells his brother, be quiet and listen, then he himself has nullified his Jum'ah. Like he has no reward. So clearly listening is a requirement. It's an act of worship. Right? But we said the purpose of Jum'ah has the added element of al-wa'z, which is, a reminder, educating, etc. But it seems to be the case that understanding the khutbah is not a requirement. Because if we say it's a requirement, then everybody has to learn Arabic, aslan, eventually. Because eventually people have to go to Hajj, and in Hajj, inevitably, you're going to pray Jum'ah, and you're going to pray Arafat, and you're going to pray Eid, and all of those are given in Arabic no matter what, and you're not going to understand it. You understand what I'm saying? So understanding the khutbah cannot be a requirement, but obviously is it better? Yes. You know what I mean? So if you have the option to go to a khutbah in which you understand, of course, that should be the preference. But like the brother said, sometimes your schedule, for the sake of timing, you're going to miss. Like this is the only Jum'ah that's offered at 12. Are there any other Jum'ahs in the city that are offered at 12?
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, ICN does too. Very good. Mesela, yani you understand what I'm saying? If that's the only one that you can go to, khalas, that's the only one that you can go to. You know what I mean? لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not burden anybody with more than they can handle. Yes.
If we sit during the khutbah,
Yeah.
if we just tell somebody to be quiet, that's level.
Yeah.
But is necessity can abrogate that?
No.
What if somebody-
Even if the person is being loud, the imam can take care of him. Or should take care of him. Does that make sense? Like if he's just whispering or something like this, ignore him. But if he's being loud enough that the imam can hear as well, obviously it's very loud and the imam should address him. This is why the Prophet ﷺ did address a man that was doing what? There was a man who was walking above people, takhattur riqab, and he's walking over them and he's trying to get to, and what did the Prophet ﷺ tell him? أيوة اجلس فقد آذيت. Sit down, you're hurting people. Yeah, this is why it's very awkward. There was an imam who came to one and in the Jum'ah, in the khutbah, he saw somebody napping on the wall. Brother, wake up! What are you doing? No, I'm just kidding. He's saying, brother, what are you doing? Why are you asleep? This is Jum'ah, blah, blah, blah. And one brother didn't wake up, and he's trying to he's putting them up. Obviously, okay. And at a certain point, this person isn't doing anything to anybody. Leave him alone. It's not a problem. Understand what I'm saying? But in fact, you're probably doing more harm than you're actually doing good. And in the same khutbah, a brother showed up late. This is a true story. A brother showed up late. Brother, why are you late? Don't you know that it's Jum'ah? Don't you know that the angels close their book after the khutbah starts? The khutbah's been started for 5 minutes. Sit down, please. Or pray your Tahiyyat al-Masjid before you sit down. And he's pointing out. One brother came in and didn't pray Tahiyyat al-Masjid. He said, stand up and pray Tahiyyat al-Masjid. Same khutbah. These 3 separate incidents happened. Okay, all of them are from the sunnah, except for waking up the person who was asleep. Right? But still, you know what I mean? Like in this day and age, you're probably going to embarrass more people than you're actually going to do good. And that methodology was good because they knew the Prophet ﷺ, respected him, revered him. But this guy doesn't even know who you are. He was a guest. He was a visitor. He's not even from that city. So you're a visitor, I don't know who you are. You know what I mean? Wallah, I told them, Wallah, I'm surprised that the brother even sat down or listen. If somebody yells at me the moment I walk into the masjid, I'll be like, hasta la vista, man. I'm gone. You know, I'm gonna.
But there is a hadith when the man make a urine in the masjid and the Prophet say, leave him.
Yeah, leave him. Yeah, you have to give space. The man, there's an Arabi, a Bedouin, he came into the masjid. I don't know if it was on the day of Jum'ah though. But still, the point is still valid. He comes in and he starts urinating in the masjid. People want to get up and kill him. He says, no, leave him. Let him finish. Come on, not even leave him. Let him finish. We'll talk to him. Because you have to balance priorities. What's the priority? What's going to happen if we embarrass him? He's probably never going to accept Islam. But now, let's sit down with him, talk to him. You know what I mean? And then after this, we can address the whole issue of urination. He himself will feel bad afterward. And we don't need to rush. Some people are very reactive instead of being proactive. One more question, because I promised you guys 30 minutes, and we're a little bit above.
What about muting the phone or checking somebody's comments?
Yeah, muting the phone is necessary even in salah. Even if it's in salah and your phone starts ringing, do you have to mute it? Yes. Even if you have to fiddle around and find it, yes. Why? Because you're disturbing the entire salah for everybody else. So whatever movement you have to do is not a problem compared to the problem of disrupting the salah. And the same thing happens in the khutbah. But checking your phone, yeah, this is difficult unless, I know cases where doctors have come, and we have patients that are in the hospital, ICU, something. People's lives are on the line. In those cases, obviously, it's clear. Yes, if it's a doctor, he's on call, and he has to get an emergency phone call. That's a different case. Does that make sense? The average musalli doesn't have somebody's life in their hands when they're looking at their phone. If you're just looking at your phone because you're bored, that's not allowed. You know what I mean? So the only case that I know of in which it's allowed to answer a phone call or to look at your phone is for doctors who have patients that could be in a life or death situation. Bas. Now? Yes. Yes, 100%. Because the Prophet ﷺ even delayed prayer and sometimes would push prayer back due to life and death situations. Salatul Khawf and fi dhul al-harb, etc. Why? Because your life is on the line. So for the doctor, if he gets a phone call and it's hey, this patient is dying, we need you. Yeah, go and save his life. You can pray dhuhr. Does that make sense? Life is more important at this moment than you establishing your Jum'ah. Imagine on the Day of Judgment he comes and he says, yeah, this guy died. Why? Because I wanted to stay for the khutbah. Does that really, and we have obviously proofs that no, life, comes ahead. In fact, Imam al-Shafi'i, I just remembered a fatwa. Imam al-Shafi'i was asked an amazing question. And he records this in one of his books. And I'll find the reference, inshallah. He was asked, if I am praying next to a river, look at this. Some people used to have very good imaginations. The question was, if I'm praying next to a river, and I see somebody drown, like fall into the river, what should I do? Am I allowed to break my salah? You know what Imam Shafi'i said? He said, go save him and come back, and you don't have to do your salah over, you resume where you left off, because that's considered part of salah.
Same example with the snake as well.
Now?
With the snake as well.
Yeah, with the snake, because
They say you should open the door and
open the door, yeah. If somebody knocks and the door is within the qibla, yeah, you can open the door and let them in, yeah. If somebody says salam to you, don't respond verbally, but you respond with your hand. Yeah.
So, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Okay. So, because you miss 3 Jum'ah is haram. As, there's hadith that say.
Yeah. So, okay. What's your question?
So, and you said that the Bedouin, they were permitted not to attend.
Naam.
Jum'ah. So if you walk in Smyrna or Laverne,
You're a Bedouin.
imagine it will take you 30 minutes to drive.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
At this point, yeah. Can you do qiyas? You could probably. To be honest.
I guess maybe the countryside.
Yeah, if you're way out in the country, like it's going to take you a very long time to get to Jum'ah, at that point, aslan ta musafir anyways. Like for them, for the Badu, why? Because they're never stationary, they're always far away, and they're always in a state of travel anyways. Does that make sense for the Badu? And for a traveler, you don't have to pray. You understand what I'm saying? Now if a person truly, it is a burden for him to go to Jum'ah and whatnot, khalas, at that point, you can pray Dhuhr. We always like to follow whatever makes it easier on the people. Now if he wants to make the effort to go to Jum'ah, طبعا هذا أحسن. But if he can't, خلاص. But going back to the hadith that you quoted, the hadith doesn't say missing 3 is haram. 1 is haram without an excuse. But the hadith says if you miss 3 without an excuse, Allah will seal your heart. خَتَمَ عَلَى قَلْبِ. He says that He will seal your heart. So it's not that 3 is haram. La, 1 is haram without an excuse. But it says whoever misses 3 Jum'ah min غَيْرِ عُذْرٍ خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَى قَلْبِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put a stamp on his heart. عذر مرض سفر هكذا. شغل مثلا زي هذا في you're in the countryside or كذا. شغل قهري أغلب الشغل most work they allow you to go to your prayers if you talk to them, you're reasonable, you say, you know what, I can't, give me مثلا 2 hours and I'll stay like an extra hour, I'll come an hour early before on the day of Friday or whatever. You can work it out with them. There were cases where we did this. Before I worked at the masjid, I've held in my life at least 15 different jobs. Some of them, they were so difficult. One time I worked customer service for Holiday Inn. 1-800 Holiday. This is back in the day when aslan doing reservations by the internet wasn't that big of a deal. This is exactly 2004. When I did this job, because I was working in college, so I had to take reservations over the phone. So you wear the headset on the computer, and I call 1-800 Holiday. Yeah, I need a hotel room in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for this night, whatever. My shift started at 2:30 every day. I would work from 2:30 to 11:30. It was a tough shift. I hated that shift. 2:30 to 11:30. Sometimes they would let us out 10:30. They're like, it's not that busy, you can go. Especially if I wouldn't take a lunch, whatever, khalas, you can go. But Jum'ah started in our city at 1:30. So by the time Jum'ah finishes, and by the time it finished, by the time you get out of the parking lot, it's 2:15, which means that I would show up to work. There's no way that I could actually show up at 2:30. So I had to go to them and I had to talk to them. Look, guys, on the day of Friday, I need you guys to give me a little bit of leeway. And they said, well, because you have to have a certain amount of number of people on the phones, then you have to come in, whatever. But you talk to them. Eventually they said, okay, if you can stay an hour later, we can start you an hour later as well. So on Friday, I talked to them and they had me start at 3:30 instead. I still got in trouble. Because now I'm thinking, and of course this is back in the day, I can start at 3:30, khalas. The guys are going to go eat lunch right after Jum'ah, so I'm going to go eat lunch with them, and then we stay in lunch a little bit too long, and then I'm showing up at work 3:40. And over there they used to count the minute. If you're 1 minute late, you get points, it was difficult. So, Alhamdulillah. But this is just one example. At the same job, by the way, because I'm working from 2:30 to 11:30, Asr time would come during my lunch break, so I would pray Asr, no problem. Maghrib was a problem, because during that time, we have Maghrib prayer. So I talked to them, and I said, I need a room, just a private place, so that I can pray Maghrib. Is that okay? And they said, okay, you want to pray? Okay. This is strange. I said, no, this is, I'm a Muslim, we do this. It's 5 times a day. Look, it's just going to be 5 minutes. Just kind of think of it like meditation. I just need a place to do this. Okay, what we can do is we'll have the security guard escort you to one of the conference rooms. They'll open it up for you. You can go inside, do your thing, and then you can leave. But we have to have somebody open it for you. It's not just open. I said, okay, that's fine. This old lady was a security guard for that shift. So they talked to her. She's like, you're going to pray? You're a Muslim? Yeah, okay. So I was giving her da'wah to the point where she would come automatically to me at Maghrib time. She's like, it's sunset. And I'm like, I'm still on a call. She's like, you need to hurry your call up. You're going to miss your prayer. And I was just like, subhanallah. Like, look at how it changes. In the beginning, you're afraid. You're like, okay, what are these people going to say about me? You know what I mean? I'm praying in my work. I'm a little embarrassed, whatever, kada. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up doors to where